You better watch out, you better not cry, better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. Oh, he's making a list, checking it twice, gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Santa Claus is coming to town.
Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I've been a really good boy this year.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Gremlins, which came out in 1984 from director Joe Dante. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Billy, played by Zach Galligan, who lives in Kingston Falls, a small American town. His dad buys him an exotic pet for Christmas, known as a Mogwai. Now, there are 3 rules for this Mogwai. Don't ever get it wet, don't ever put it in direct sunlight, and don't ever feed it after midnight. When Billy accidentally breaks these rules, the town is terrorized by gremlins.
Director Joe Dante, under the supervision of legendary filmmaker Steven Spielberg, has created, if not for me, the most iconic Christmas movie ever. Joe Dante has come off the back of working on Howling, and it was because of that film that Spielberg hired him to create or to direct Gremlins. Of course, Joe Dante's work also includes Piranha, Small Soldiers, and The Burbs, as just a couple of his most well-known works. The film stars Zach Galligan, who you might also remember from Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
We also have Phoebe Gates, who you might also only recognise from Gremlins 2. Oh, wait a minute. And Drop Dead Fred.
For me, one of the top 5 Christmas movies of all time. You know, it's up there with the likes of Die Hard, you know, and Scrooged. And I mean this as in an adult-esque Christmassy kind of movie. You know, reading up on the notes for this movie, it was like they wanted to make a Christmassy horror.
Well, that's why they brought Joe Dante on board. After seeing Piranha and Howling, the script was originally an adult film. It was going to be a horror film. There was decapitations, there was dog mutilations. It was pretty gruesome what they actually intended. There was no cute and innocent Gizmo throughout the entire film.
No, it was literally the Gizmo character was going to be your bad guy. But how can you not love that face? I mean, when he starts singing, just that opening scene, it's very 1950s kind of Twilight Zone-esque with his dad walking down the streets of Chinatown, I'm assuming it is, finding this back alley antique store, you know, trying to sell the old man the bathroom buddy, you know, and then you just hear the little noises from Gizmo, and you go and he starts doing that song, and it just kind of lulls you in, doesn't it? It's like, oh, it's so cute and so fluffy, and we should take him home. And then the opening just goes Christmas all over your face. It's awesome.
That opening matte shot painting of the town.
Yeah.
And when it's absolutely covered in snow, you're just like, wow, that's the most idyllic Christmas Day morning or Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
It's so picturesque. It's fantastic.
I mean, that's it. Kingston Falls obviously really doesn't exist, but every time I sit down and watch Gremlins, I'm like, God, I wish I could live there. You know, it just seems so picturesque. It seems so perfect. Then you start getting introduced to some of the characters. Like you said, you get Billy, you get Mr. Futterman, I think it is, his next door neighbour. Yeah. You know, Billy's late for work. He goes into the bank. He meets up with the gorgeous Phoebe Gates. I mean, she's just.
Should we cue the Richmond High clip again?
Yeah. And then you get the evil Mrs. Deagle. There's always got to be that one character in that small town that owns everything and that everybody hates.
She's the Scrooge character.
Yeah.
The bank and I have the same purpose in life, to make money, not to support a lot of deadbeats.
Then we follow Billy. He's gone to the local bar. He's met up with Judge Reinhold, which I always think is funny. Judge Reinhold gets a little cameo appearance in this. You know, perfect 80s star from like Beverly Hills Cop trilogy and things like that.
He did have a bigger part originally in the film, but a lot of his scenes were cut from the original release. Although you can see what actually happened to that character in deleted scenes on the DVD.
Yeah. And then Billy goes home, and like we said, you know, idyllic family. Here's the house, you know, here's your mum, here's your dad, who's the mad inventor, and Mrs. Deagle is chasing you to pay off these bills. And the dad comes in and has just got this box, you know, and he's just like, this isn't going to wait till Christmas. You have to open it now. And you're like, what's in the box? What's in the box? Who never wanted a Mogwai for a pet?
Exactly. Which is no wonder that the Furby craze, when it did come out about 15 years later, went as viral as it did, thanks to Gremlins. I
always love the fact that this film has films within a film. You know, like we said, you've got the moments when they go up into Billy's bedroom and they're watching the TV. And you've got the Mad Max poster.
The Road Warrior,
Yeah, just on the side. And I'm like, I really want to watch Mad Max 2 now. You know, there's hints to Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And there's the crazy moment when the dad's away and he's on the phone and you see the time machine in the background.
That's right, which does actually disappear in the next shot. And there's people like, where did it go? Also, in that same shot, you've got Steven Spielberg, I think, riding around in the buggy. And you've also got Robbie the robot.
Yeah. One of the things I found out only just recently is when the dad stops at the gas stop and tries to sell that smokeless ashtray, the guy he's selling it to is the main star from The Thing from Another World by Howard Hawks. I was like, oh my God, how did I miss this for like 20 years?
Well, Joe Dante's intention with the film was for it always to be a mishmash of It's a Wonderful Life mixed with Hitchcock's The Birds. And when you're watching Gremlins, you can't help but see all of the parallels to It's a Wonderful Life. There's so many character types that are the same, so many plot developments that are the same. And of course, some of the things that you see on the TV in the background is just perfectly foreshadowing what's about to happen in Gremlins.
Yeah. We also have one of the iconic 80s stars, Corey Feldman.
Of course.
A very, very young Corey Feldman. And he himself actually doesn't have that much of a big part, but he is integral to the story because he's the one who spills the water onto Gizmo.
Who's in that jar?
Nothing, just water.
I mean, after he spilt the water on Gizmo, it is a pretty traumatic experience for Gizmo, but at the same time, as an audience member, it's a little bit revolting to watch because you're watching him screaming on the table, and you're seeing these fur balls pop out of his back, and I'm like, how does that actually work? I'm sat there trying to think of how the biology of this creature actually works, and I just could not think of it.
I tried to do the same thing. I was sat there looking at the question, the rules, sorry. And, you know, okay, do not put it in bright light, especially sunlight, because it will kill him. Okay, that's pretty...
So is it a vampire?
Yeah, it's pretty understandable. Do not do that, because he'll probably explode or something. Okay, that's fine. Don't ever get him wet. Don't ever give him a bath. Okay, so after a while, Gizmo's going to start to smell unless he cleans himself. But how does he stay hydrated?
Does he dribble on himself?
That's it. Is it just water in particular, or can he drink milk?
Salt water count?
Orange juice, salt water. You know? Don't feed him after midnight. Well, it's like that guy says in Gremlins 2. What happens if he's on a plane and he passes over into a different time zone?
Technically, it's always after midnight.
That's it. That's it.
Even a minute to midnight, it's still after midnight.
As I've got older, I question the rules now, but I'm just like, okay, it's a film, you know, it's a Christmas film, just go with it.
Well, the thing is, the film follows its own rules, and it doesn't break them.
Yeah.
And so, as an audience member, it's so easy to just go with, that's the rule set for this film. It's no problem.
Isn't that incredible, Pete?
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, don't you think this is incredible?
The special effects for Gizmo and the other Mogwais leading up to them becoming the Gremlins are still, I'm going on record to say it, still phenomenal.
Yeah, the puppet work is brilliant. The fact that there is no CGI throughout the film is testament to how good this film is.
The detail in Gizmo, the way his eyes move, obviously there's not so much movement from Gizmo because obviously he is a puppet, so a lot of the times you are just seeing him sat down or laid against something or
You never
being
see
held.
him on his 2 feet walking anywhere.
Yeah, that would obviously come into the second movie, but in this one I love also the fact that when the other Mogwais are made, they are individuals. You know, they are not just replicants of Gizmo. Each, you know, you've got Spike, the Stripe with the mohawk going through. You've got the others who obviously are kind of a little bit evil, so they're going to follow Stripe. You know, and then once they become the Gremlins, each one of the Gremlins, as identical as they look, there are slight differences. You know, some of them have more teeth than others. Some of them have bigger ears. Some of them are taller. Some of them are shorter. Some of them are male. Some of them are female. And it's just like...
So wait a minute. There is a scene, I know I'm jumping the gun here, but I know you've mentioned it, so I'm going to follow that tangent now.
Yeah.
That in Gremlins 2, there is a very female-esque gremlin.
Yeah.
Now, from what I'm seeing in these two films, is that I think they are all male gremlins.
I think they're all asexual.
Asexual because they only need water to multiply.
That's it.
So, but
they choose. I think there are a few that choose. Just like in any society, if there are way too many males, there'll be one that goes, you know what? Sure, I'm going to dress up as a woman.
So it wasn't nature finding a way.
Nature always finds a way.
Now, it's an interesting side bit because you think, well, Gizmo has to have been created somehow. He must have come from splashed water on another Mogwai. How did he get created? And why is he innocent compared to these other Mogwai, which are so vicious?
Well, like I said, it's like a rarity, you know.
You're absolutely right. In the novelization of the film, they explain that that Gizmo is actually like a 1 in 10,000 chance that you will actually create an innocent and likable sort of Mogwai compared to all the others, which will just become deviant gremlins.
At the same time, before we get into the actual Gremlins moments themselves, Barney the dog, I've got to bring up, is one of the most awesome actors in this film. We talk, you know, people talk about great animal actors. You know, we talked about Prince from People Under the Stairs, and you've got that dog from the Silent Movie. But Barney, it's just so awesome. The way he kind of interacts with the puppet, you know, makes you kind of think, oh my God, he's more realistic than I actually thought. And then there's little scenes like when they tie him up and hang him outside. Somebody actually picked up that poor dog, tied him in Christmas lights, and then went, action.
Barney, who did this to you? Hold on, I'll get you down. Stay still.
No, it was just a puppet. That was just a puppet dog.
Well, it looked pretty damn realistic.
I think it's just the shock of seeing the dog tied up in Christmas lights that just makes you go, whoa.
But it's like that bit at the beginning when he's hiding under Billy's desk and Mrs. Deagle comes in with that imported snowman head, and she's talking about animal cruelty. She wants to murder that dog. And the fact that the dog was trained enough to untie his rope and then leap over the counter and attack her. I'm like, give that dog an Oscar. I love the fact that at this point the movie is starting to take a really dark turn. You know, I think it starts from the moment Billy is talking to Kate. and she's talking about how she hates Christmas. And then you cut back to the science teacher, and he's taking the blood sample. So you're like, okay, that's a bit dark. And then obviously morning comes, and you've got the eggs all set up, and you sit there. I sat there like, okay, it started off really kind of Twilight Zone-esque. Then it was all Christmassy, and now I'm really getting quite scared. What is in those cocoons?
And it's not long before the cocoons actually hatch, but we don't actually see what's emerged from them straight away.
Yeah.
There's a brief encounter with Billy. Where he realizes that his science teacher has been killed, and he's got one needle in his butt cheek. Now, originally in the script, he had multiple needles all in his face, which was the result of his death. But, of course, having that in a family-friendly movie had to be removed, so it was reduced to just that. Because I was always wondering, how did that kill him?
You can inject oxygen straight into the blood supply, but I don't know if that works through the butt cheek.
I just don't know how he was still able to lay down there and let the gremlin run all the way around him. You know, sometimes when you look at a film like this and you think, how can something so small kill grown men? And you just think back to the Child's Play films or to anything like that. And you're like, you know what, these things are vicious and cruel and nasty enough. They'll find a way.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we get to perhaps my favourite scene of the entire film.
Oh, you're going to steal it from me, aren't you?
I'm going to steal it right now. The mother, home alone on Christmas Eve. And she's hearing strange noises coming from the kitchen.
I love that song that plays.
Do you see what I see?
Do you hear what I hear? A song, high above the tree, with a voice heard.
As soon as that starts up, I'm just like, this is it. This is definitely it. And it's just, the horror elements come in so strong.
Yeah.
When she's picking up the knife and she's nervous and scared. You see the gremlin shadow on the wall.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen a full proper shot of them yet. And of course, when she comes into the kitchen, there's a gremlin sat on the counter, climbing into the blender. And she doesn't pull any punches. She doesn't even wait. She just goes straight in there. On.
I would not wait. You got this thing in your kitchen with its head in the blender. It's going in the blender. I ain't gonna stop to ask what it's doing. It's just like beep. You know, you got the other one. She forces into the microwave.
Well, no, after that, she's got another one that's throwing plates at her.
God, yeah.
So she has to pick up the a small table to shield herself.
Yeah.
And then she goes over there and she knifes that gremlin. I mean, it's psycho stabbing. And of course, there is a deleted scene where the gremlin is laying there and pulls the knife out of its own chest before it dies. And I was like, and of course, they cut that because it's too graphic. But as she's forcing the other gremlin into the microwave, if you look in the background, you can see that gremlin in the background, like, pulling the knife out. But then, the gremlin in the microwave.
It always amazes me whenever people try and put Gremlins on TV. They always cut that bit, and I'm like, no, that's like one of the best scenes in Gremlins. You can't cut those bits out. It all builds up to the fight with the Christmas tree.
Exactly, yeah. It's tense. I mean, you just see those red eyes in the tree as, surrounded by all the decorations. It's fantastic.
Billy comes in, pulls the sword off the wall, and whoomph, head goes into the fireplace. And like you said, I mean, it's difficult to aim this at a certain generation, but as I've gotten older, I'm just like, you know what, if you're an adult, you're gonna laugh. You are gonna laugh. You cannot help but laugh. When the gremlins laugh, you are laughing, because it's just so funny. As a teenager, you're finding it funny, but it's also quite horrific. As a small child watching something get its head cut off in front of the fireplace, you're gonna be traumatized. But that's the good thing, because you can hit so many generations with this one film.
One of my other favourite side notes throughout the film that keeps cropping up is all of the inventions.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the first inventions we see is Billy with the egg
smasher
breaker
thing, yeah.
And so of course it's supposed to break an egg and drop it into the bowl, and then it does the first one, and then it does all the eggs at once, and then after that, of course, you've got the smokeless ashtray.
Yeah.
You've got the bathroom buddy, which always squirts toothpaste or shaving foam uncontrollably.
I love the scene where Billy is trying to make orange juice. And if you watch carefully, Zach Galligan's face is just a smile because he kind of knows what's coming.
All that juice come from one orange?
That's what I said.
It's a pretty good invention, I guess.
I said that.
None gone to waste.
Oh, some brilliant inventions, but it's it's mad cap inventor, isn't he? He's got these good inventions, but they like the mum says, they only work for a couple of days and then they just kind of go haywire. As the film progresses, though, Billy has chased Stripe to the local YMCA swimming pool, and tiny little fight. Stripe overpowers Billy, and then you just watch him take a bomb straight into that swimming pool. Once again, questioning. Is that water he's dropping in, or is that chlorine-induced water? Does the chlorine have an effect on it? It doesn't matter.
I'm also guessing that gremlins can't breathe or don't need to breathe.
Can they swim? At the same time, it brings me up to one of my favourite sequences is when, they come out of the darkness and you've got that shot of the street and there are just thousands of them.
Anarchy is about to reign supreme now.
Yeah.
And it's great. You've got people running around the streets with gremlins all over them. Yeah. You've got Pete, the next door neighbour. He's there with a catapult, flinging out gremlins. You got the two police officers that are drunk out of their faces, like little green men, sure. And then there's Santa Claus there being devoured by gremlins. It's just, and of course, just to top it all off, the music just keeps an uplifting sort of beat to the whole thing. And of course, any time a human is killed, the gremlins are in bursts of hysterics. Yeah. So as you've said, so are you as an audience member.
I couldn't help it. Every time you just get a shot of their face and them just maniacally laughing, I'm just like, yeah. At the same time, these people are being hurt, but they're off screen. There aren't any major deaths. I'd say there's like 2 or 3 major deaths in the movie. I mean, the 2 police officers, I'm pretty sure, don't survive. When their brakes are cut, because it cuts to the gremlin and then you kind of, off screen, you see the big explosion. So I'm thinking, okay, either the building's exploded and they've managed to escape, or their car's exploded. But the Mrs. Deagle death gets me in stitches every fucking time.
It's so good to see, the Ebenezer Scrooge character brought down. But it's the fact that we see her be this bitch. I mean, she is a bitch when she's in the bank. The way that she puts it on, the way she's like, I'm going to put your dog through a slow death on a high heat spin dry cycle. And you're like, and then she's like, oh, my heart, my heart. And then when she's at home, she's not all made up, and you're like, she's vulnerable here. So you're like, can I sympathise with this character? And then you realise that she's named all of her cats after different currencies from around the world. And you're like, no, she's got to have it coming. And of course, the gremlins sneak in through the cat flap, distract her at the doorway with the carolers.
The carol singers.
I hate Christmas carolers. I warned you, brats!
love the way that she's all there with a jug of water, and then when she gets shocked and drops it, and I'm like, that's lucky, because you would have just made like 20 more with that. But they're so cute in their little earmuffs and their Christmas hats, the way they look down at the paper, and they're still, oh god, it's amazing.
And then, of course, she panics. She gets into her seated elevator. Straight out the window. I love the shot you see later, and it's just her legs sticking up the chair. I mean, that's dark. That's grim. That's Christmas Eve right there.
My God, Fry. That was Mrs. Deagle.
There's also one other fatality, or implied fatality in the film.
Yeah.
Throughout the ensuing chaos, and that is his next door neighbor. He sat there, and of course he's complained before about gremlins during World War II.
Yeah.
Now he's complaining about gremlins playing with his antenna and playing with his TV. And just as a joke, his TV gets turned into a foreign channel, which he can't understand. So he goes outside to check on the antenna, and the gremlins get inside his motor and plow it right into his house.
His Kentucky harvester.
That's a Kentucky harvester.
That's Kentucky harvester.
See that plow? 15 years old. Hasn't given me a day's trouble in 15 years. You know why? Kentucky harvester. It ain't some farm piece of crap you pick up these days. That's a Kentucky harvester.
And of course, I always remember this actor from Terminator.
Yeah.
And so watching him and his wife get mowed over by the gremlins, and of course we know that he does come back for the sequel.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's weird because I always thought he got run over before I saw Gremlins 2. But watching it back again, it's very easy for them to duck underneath the scoop of the Kentucky Harvester. Plus, at the same time, he actually rings the police station.
What happened? The Futtermans. Something about a snowplow. Freak accident.
So it's implied there that they aren't killed.
Yeah.
But as the way that the scene is acted with his wife and the way that they react to the gremlins in the van, it's very easily to think, oh, they've just been run over.
Because they don't show them being run over, but they show the gremlins laughing crazily. It's almost like the last few frames of that shot, all of the gremlins sort of jerk as if they'd just hit them
I think
or hit the wall.
Yeah, I think that's the scoop hitting the wall, and that's what I mean. The Futtermans managed to duck under, and the gremlins have all scarpered off. It's awesome. As the film progressed, the town has been destroyed. Billy has saved Kate from the local bar, and I think that scene is absolutely awesome. The gremlins are all in there. They're all drinking, which is weird because obviously they keep them away from water, but beer's okay. Some of the gremlins have got guns and they're playing cards, and when people are cheating, they shoot each other. I love the little blues gremlin who's kind of just sat there on his own, and then the other one comes up with the puppets and he's like That's awesome. You got the one that starts breakdancing in the middle. You got the ones dressed up as women, and it's just so crazy because Kate realizes that she can use the camera to flash bright light into their face so that she can escape. Her and Billy get out. His car breaks down again. They get into the bank, and we're then brought back to the darkness when Kate explains about why she doesn't like Christmas. And I'm like, okay, I've just gone over the crazy little green monsters. They're possibly killing people, but her story is very depressing.
So much so, it was almost removed from the film.
Right.
The studio were telling them that this is a family-friendly film. Cut that scene. They went to Spielberg, and Spielberg was like, I can understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to say that, Joe Dante, this is your decision.
Yeah.
And Joe Dante was like, well, fuck you all. It's staying in. Because this is comedy gold. And of course, when you're watching it, you can't help but feel depressed because Phoebe Cates does such a good job
she does.
delivering this story. And it's supposed to be funny. Because it's funny. It's stupid. But because she delivers it in such a dramatic way, it's just a perfect blend of dark comedy.
Yeah, I love the way it cuts to Gizmo's face when she explains it's her father, and Gizmo's like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm feeling, Gizmo, that's what I'm feeling.
Firemen came and broke through the chimney top, and me and Mom were expecting them to pull out a dead cat or a bird, and instead they pulled out my father.
They soon realise that the Gremlins have gathered at the local cinema, where they are all watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And they're loving it. They're sat there with the popcorn, they're singing along, everyone's having a good time. You also can't help but notice that there's the Mickey Mouse looking gremlin in the silhouette in the foreground.
And the darkness comes back in again. Billy comes up with this great idea of cutting off the gas mains and setting a fire. And so you're just like, okay, now it's like the big quick escape, because all the gremlins realize that they're these two people. And so I sit there like, if that gang of gremlins get hold of them, what are they going to do to them? Because, you know, I go on a limb and say that they don't intentionally kill people, but then are they going to eat Kate and Billy if they get hold of them?
They kind of make every death look like an accident in some way.
Yeah.
You don't ever see them physically shoot or stab anybody to death.
Yeah, I suppose if they'd slowed them down, the explosion would have just killed them all anyway. But luckily Billy and Kate get outside, lock the door, and we get the massive explosion, killing all the gremlins inside. We see a few of them running around on fire, but Stripe, the leader of the gremlins, has escaped into the local shopping mart. And this end fight, I absolutely just love. Because it's kind of Billy's job now to finish this. He knows that if Stripe gets the water, it's going to start all over again. And you're hearing on the radio as well, as the dad turns up, that the army have turned up and they're planning on turning the hoses on these little green men. And so you're like, oh no, don't do that. You're going to mess it all up again. And Billy sends Kate off to turn the lights on and you know, try and find out where Stripe is. Gizmo disappears and finds a remote controlled Barbie car to drive around his and starts having flashbacks to the movie that he watched. And then there's a whole chainsaw baseball fight between Stripe and Billy. It's like,
I always forget when I watch this film that this gremlin comes in with a chainsaw. It's like,
he's got a crossbow. He gets a gun. You know, this gremlin is taking no shit. He is smart. He's wanting to kill anybody so that he can do what he needs to do. And luckily, you get the last fight sequence where Stripe is putting his finger into the fountain. Billy doesn't know how to stop him. Gizmo comes in and drives up the snow shovel and gets the sunlight to come in, and it's a pretty gruesome death for Stripe.
Talking about the special effects again, the death scene of Stripe is still spectacular and disturbing to look at today. It's grim to look at, and then when he's melting and he's still making those noises, even when he collapses down onto the ground and he's starting to dissolve, even what's left of it still starts bubbling back up, and it's
very Evil Dead like.
As I've already said, one of my absolute most favourite scenes is the kitchen encounter sequence. Mrs. Deagle flying out the window.
Are you stealing all the good ones?
The bar scene with Kate when she's there trying to give them beer and make sure they're all serviced. But perhaps my absolute most favourite, most memorable moment is the very end of the film. And that is when Gizmo comes out of the box and really says his first words.
Well, yeah.
Bye, Billy.
Perhaps someday you may be ready.
Oh,
Yeah, you're just like, I want to see the second one now. For me, I like Gary said, the kitchen sequence, absolutely awesome. Mrs. Deagle's death gets me in stitches every time, especially the carol singing gremlins. I always like the scene at the beginning in the bank when the Barney has attacked Mrs. Deagle, and Judge Reinhold comes up with that line that this is a bank, not a pet store, and his boss congratulates him on making a joke. And Judge Reinhold says thank you as well. It's just kind of stupid 80s comedy that you don't want to laugh at, but you just can't help. It just sets you in. As I said, all of the Gremlin moments are just amazing. The bar sequence, the sequence with them coming out of the darkness, them just destroying the town, the cinema sequence. It's just phenomenal. I wholeheartedly recommend this movie. This movie is timeless. It's a classic. It's one of those, like I said, one of those Christmas movies you have to watch every year. Mainly because if you're one of these people who sits there going, no, I'm not a Christmassy fan, then sit down and watch Gremlins. Just watch Gremlins, because it will get you into that kind of attitude of, you know, it's a fun time of the holidays, that bad things can happen, and bad things do happen all the time, but when you see those little toothy grins laughing their asses off, you will laugh too.
I, of course, cannot help but recommend Gremlins. I intend to watch Gremlins every Christmas Eve, every year without fail.
Yeah.
Just because if I'm a Grinchy type of person, I find it very, very difficult to get into the festive spirit of the holidays until I've watched Gremlins. And as soon as I've watched it, I'm like, Christmas is here. I'm ready now. One last thing I want to bring up that we've kind of overlooked is the music.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry Goldsmith has done an exceptional job with the score here. I will go as far to say that the Gremlins theme tune is perhaps one of the best film soundtracks of all time, because it is instantly iconic and recognizable. As soon as you hear the first few notes, you're like, that's Gremlins.
Yeah.
The film also has some great music tracks throughout, that of course a lot of Christmas pop songs throughout the ages, but just the music is just absolutely brilliant. One last thing I do want to bring up is the fact that the Gremlins themselves, as we've mentioned before, that Gizmo has just a few lines of dialogue here and here, but one of my other most favourite parts is all of the Gremlins dialogue.
Tickle, tickle, tickle. Yum. Yum, yum.
It's just, you know, to the noises that they make when they're in the mailbox spitting out letters. It's just all of those moments, just all of the Gremlin noises and sound effects just make everything feel believable and real. I definitely recommend Gremlins. You're gonna watch it every year without fail. If you're already a fan of the film, you're gonna watch it again. You're then gonna go and watch the second film, which I will say now, I'm not a big fan of the second film. I enjoyed it more as a child, but rewatching it now, all the fact that it parodies sequels, the fact that it sends up the first film, in a big way, it kind of. It's an interesting and it's an oddity. And it's also surprising, really, that because of how successful these two films are, that the franchise never went beyond the two films.
Good. Gremlins 2 is, for me, Gremlins 2 is awesome. Gremlins is awesome. Leave it there. Do not plan to make that remake that they're planning on making.
Unless Joe Dante's still involved.
Yeah, and Zach Galligan and Phoebe Cates is in it.
Absolutely. Well, that's it from us here at Off the Shelf Reviews. We just want to say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and we'll catch you guys in the new year. Thanks for watching, everyone. Yeah.